we got a little camp buzz, a little All-American team to talk about as well. But we love when y'all get in here and y'all get the conversation going early. So I'm driving and producing here right now. So the link was live early. So shout out to Cabe, who said at 4:11 a.m., he must have just gotten off. He said, my manager slipped up and revealed he's a huge college football nerd today. So I wrote down, quote, the Cover 3 podcast on a receipt and told him about the pod. We've gained a new sicko. Cabe, you got your manager hooked on the pod. You got the tailgate going at 4:11 a.m. Eastern time. So guess what? Your question leads off the show. Mailbag question.
4:11 a.m.
4:11 a.m.
Go to bed, Cabe.
Listen, if you work in the service industry, that might be when you're home.
It's true.
You know, like you work, you close, everything that has to do with the cleanup. Many of us have been there. So shout out to Cabe. His question is, if you could undo one major move from conference realignment, what would you undo and why?
Ooh. Only one?
I mean, and again, like some of these are domino effects. I understand.
Oh. Man, there's so.
What was it in 93 when Penn State joined the Big Ten?
And so Penn State joined the Big Ten and Florida State joined the ACC about the same time, a year or two.
And they were independents.
Correct.
But like Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska were very close to joining the Big Ten at the same time Penn State did.
What could the move be a move that didn't happen?
Texas to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's probably the one. Honestly, like the best answer here, Chip. I think you're right.
Like you wish it would have, like the move being the fact that it did not happen because of what that would have meant for the preservation of the Pac-12, for creating this like huge Southwestern, conference that included all of these like great football powers. Any others?
What if we don't have Arkansas go to the SEC? Like, does that make the Big 12 stay a little bit more united for longer? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's like I don't really love any of it as much as I've accepted all of it. But I'll just go back to Rutgers and Maryland joining the Big Ten. It's like I've kind of accepted that they're in the league now because they've been in for a while and you just kind of get used to it. But yeah, I mean, I guess in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense for them to be in the league than USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. But here we are. So, let's carry on forward.
Do you think that there would be, I mean, of course, my little ACC brain was, first I was going back to the Pitt and the Syracuse, and then I went even further back and I said, what if the Big East had not been rated?
Yeah.
Miami probably continues to be as dominant or has more wins or is more relevant.
I mean, I feel like we're in a situation now where Miami might be winning more games, but I don't know if it would be as relevant because we've seen like conferences just kind of get pushed aside and left out. Like Florida State went undefeated, won the ACC, and got left out of the playoff. How much respect would Miami be getting for winning the Big East?
Fair.
Yeah.
But if you still had Virginia Tech, if you still had Miami, and you had those years where, Virginia Tech won, I think, 10 games in 8 straight seasons as an ACC member, like right when they joined.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was they weren't going undefeated. And when they got to those BCS bowl games outside of the BCS championship game, they were losing. Like the ACC went 2-13 in BCS games in the BCS era. If you want to look at the reputation of Atlantic Coast Conference football, a lot of it stems from the fact that every single time they showed up on the big stage at the end of the year, they lost. And at the same time, the SEC ran off 7 straight national championships.
You can't imagine rooting for a conference that lost a lot of games on the big stage. That just simply could not be.
I don't root for a conference.
Right.
Yeah, sure you don't. Sure you don't.
We
You
do-
root for a state. You root for every school in a state.
yes, bingo. And you know how many of those big stage games the state of North Carolina loses? Not many. All right. Thank you to Cabe for jumping in and getting that one going. Keep the conversation going in the tailgate. Cody, of course, identifying what a lot of people do when they talk about conference realignment. If you could go back and undo things, you just wish that things were a little bit more regionalized. Let's go ahead and let's buzz it up. Players that are making a buzz. Camp buzz. Camp buzz. Camp buzz. Talking about players that are buzzing. Bud, dropped a little bit of buzz in the group chat today. You want to we want to pass that to the people, or is that that's
I don't know why I'm muted. That's kind of jacked up. Okay. Oscar Delp. Actually wasn't me. I didn't hit the mute button and then I mute myself. I heard Oscar Delp's looking pretty good.
Duh.
Tom. So.
Duh. He's the best tight end in the country. Of course he's gonna look good.
That's I'm interested here. Like, so Malachi Nelson not leading or like not pulling away at Boise. Does that change y'all's opinion on maybe what Boise can be? Because it does change mine. That they're a different team if they have a former 5-star playing like a 5-star should play. But I don't know. Like I Madsen is no great shake. So if he's not beating him out, that does change my opinion on Boise. Somewhat, actually.
All right. So do you believe that that's the? I mean, because at one point, Drake May was in a battle with Jacoby Criswell.
I don't think you leave USC for Boise if things are going real well. Personally, like I'm just trying to read I try to judge what the market does, and I mean,
because Ashton Jeanty is the heart of that offense. I understand Malachi Nelson's a former 5-star player, but the reason to like Boise State as a team that could be 4, 5, 6 points better than everybody else in the Mountain West, to me, is defense and running the football. And if you have Malachi Nelson, that's the icing on top. That's like, hey, you could be a top 20 team. You could be a top 15 team, not power ratings, but at least like rankings wise by the end of the year.
That's fair. But like, I think a lot of this, Boise hype this year, also, I mean, we're really baking in a lot of Boise defensive improvement. That defense sucked last year for a large stretch of the season. I mean,
most
Conley had him Conley had him 82nd in the country defensively. Like that's not great. I don't know. I'm not sure anybody else in the Mountain West actually can do anything about it. But
that's the thing. Like I was trying to figure out the Mountain West. I was breaking it down.
It is hard.
As we're doing the win totals the last few weeks, I've been like really diving in. I was just like, man, I really don't know what's going to be any good in this league. Like I assume it will be the usual suspects, but I just don't know how good any of them actually are going to be.
So one of the problems is that Air Force has so little returning production this year to where normally I just don't care because they have an unlimited roster size as do all the service academies, and they generally it's just next man up, right? But at the extreme margins, this could matter, and they lost almost everybody who mattered for them last season. You have massive roster turnover at San Diego State, New Mexico, San Jose State, big time scheme change at a couple of those places as well. Wyoming just lost Harrison Whaley for I think an undetermined amount of time. I think it was. Maybe the chat can correct me on that, but he's out for now. That's their stud, running back. UNLV lost Maeva to USC. Colorado State is alleging that their quarterback got offered $600,000.
And wide receiver.
The receiver I buy.
The receiver I get, yeah.
The quarterback ain't no way, dude. Like maybe total combined times 2 or something. Like between all of the offers you might have gotten.
Hey, what's that currency exchange rate? Is there something about Colorado currency I don't understand right now?
I mean, Nevada, massive turnover again. So
Fresno loses Tedford again.
Right.
It's like, there's like 7 teams who can win that league. I think that's really how it's going to boil down to.
If Boise's not like a legitimate top 40-ish team, if Boise's a top 40-ish team, then they're going to romp over everybody, I think.
Right.
But if they're not, it's interesting.
Okay, so interesting. We've got our eyes on Malachi Nelson, and we will look.
I've got more buzz. Tyler Van Dyke was named starter at Wisconsin, finally officially yesterday.
That's
But also,
encouraging.
yeah, I think I mean, it had been trending that way from what I'd heard for a while now, but I think that they finally named it as a big deal. And also, today, I believe, is Ryan Day's last time talking to the media before the season starts. So I'm pretty sure Will Howard will be named the starter today, too, at Ohio State.
Didn't Urban just name Cardale Jones the starter like seconds before the game started? When they played, was it the Hokies? Or somebody he named. I remember it's like, all right, it's going to be you. It came out like
It was
he hadn't
JT
told him.
Barrett, I think.
Maybe it was JT Barrett. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think Ryan Day's I think that he just probably wants to get it done and get it named so they can move on and get ready for the year. Because I mean, it's not like they need to hide it when they're playing. Who are they playing in week 1? Akron. It's like, oh,
yeah,
we don't want the Zips to get any inside information on it.
Big Ten on CBS game of the week, 3:30.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah, you're gonna watch that for a quarter.
Read the hell out of Times live blog on that.
Yeah, right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more. Ohio State favored by 49.5 against Akron.
First quarter, what's the line?
Oh,
It's about 12.5, 13.
It's probably 17.5.
Yeah. I was talking with somebody on the production team, and we were discussing this is going to be like really where they have to flex their muscles when it comes to in-game commentary and storylines for, that second half. You got to have your notebook locked and loaded. And that's where I think that our stellar production team on CBS, America's Most Watched Network, the network of stars, I think that's where they'll really shine.
I mean, we're got to have our NFL draft expert on there in the second half, talking about like who could go where, why they came back, how much they could move up, how much they can move down.
Oh no! Listen, Chip Kelly profile.
Chip,
yeah, for sure.
A lot of good Chip Kelly in there. A lot of
NIL expert maybe on how much their roster costs. Probably not.
I would bet that's not part of the packet.
Well, will there be a look at the potential playoff field in the first game of the season during the third quarter? Let's find out.
Hey, listen, that's honestly going to depend on. Let's see, who would be the third string quarterback? Devin Brown.
No, I think Devin Brown will be second.
So saying.
Like listed second, or who would they actually put in?
I'm talking about who is the third quarterback in. If Will Howard is done after halftime.
I think Devin Brown will be the guy who gets the second chance.
I think they would throw Devin Brown in because Devin Brown stayed around. But I think if they had to go to somebody, like if they knew that Howard was out for the rest of the season or something like that, something bad, I think they would try to get Sayin in early to get him as many reps as possible, because I don't think they think they can win with Devin Brown.
And I also think even though Howard's going to be the starter, I think they're going to give Devin Brown snaps, like regardless.
I have not been paying attention to the Brown Kineholes like debate. Honestly, I have no idea.
Back to Tyler Van Dyke. Tom, you mentioned it's been trending that way. Have you, based on the things you've been hearing, observing, picking up, gained confidence in what Wisconsin's offense might look like, and because here's what I'm seeing. Wisconsin is in a very thick middle pack. They, we draw our line after the top 4, and then we talk about there being a gap. But Wisconsin, if everything goes right, can be near the top of that second tier.
Yeah.
So one of the keys, I think, is the quarterback play and how it fits in with the offense. What's the sense or the read that you have on Tyler Van Dyke being able to get as close as possible to that form that had him named the Rookie of the Year in the ACC a couple years ago?
Personally, I'm not confident anymore that we're going to see that kid that was at Miami as a freshman. I just don't know if that's still there. I do feel like, from what I've heard, is that like it was a rough start when he got there, like learning the playbook, learning all this stuff. It was like anytime you see a new guy coming into a new situation, there's a learning curve figuring things out. And just as camp has progressed, he's getting a little more familiar with the playbook and what he's supposed to be doing, and things are just improving a bit in practice. But it has not been a situation in which I think that he was blowing away Braden Locke. I think it's just as it's gone on, they're starting to see more of the things in practice that they brought him to Madison for. So they're naming him the starter, and was the expectation all along. But Braden Locke was playing well in practice, and they didn't want to give him they didn't want to, say he wasn't going to be the starter because he was practicing well enough and performing well enough that he earned the shot to keep competing for the job.
Yeah, I agree. I was very skeptical on Tyler Van Dyke coming in, but it does appear that he's had a better fall than he did spring, as far as camp wise. Like I was pretty down on Wisconsin.
Yeah, spring was
based on
not
what
great.
I was like, oh God, if he can't beat out the other kid like that, Wisconsin's going to suck. And I'm glad that he did. I do think he has a lot more upside than the other option there.
Back to your Oscar Delp. This is something related. Saw a mention in the tailgate. Do you take anything from Kirby Smart's comments on depth? I don't know if you saw this, but he talked about we are so much further behind at this point than we have been before. That we are not to the point where if you needed those backups to go in there and play, we don't know if they are as ready. He talks about having conversations with players all across college, not players, coaches across college football. He feels like that is a shared sentiment. Bud, what do you make of the way that Kirby is framing this?
I think he is correct because in theory, even with almost unlimited funds, you could acquire a bunch of players to come and be quality depth for you. But nobody has unlimited funds. And the ultimate thing still remains that players want to play. And so some of Georgia's backups are better, or in some cases, way better than the starters on other SEC teams or even some other decent teams so far. And they are going to leave Georgia and go play elsewhere and play pretty good. So that means that Georgia's backups in many cases will be younger players. You can only pay to retain some of these young guys up to a certain point without being able to really show them a path to playing time. And players aren't idiots generally. So they can see, like, am I really going to play? I don't know. I mean, I'm at practice. This guy gets reps before me and that guy. So I definitely think that Georgia and all teams have a little bit less depth than they used to have in terms of like really good second stringers, really good third stringers. And I think that's a great thing for the sport, by the way, right? It's not good if Bama had a bunch of backups on its roster that start for like half the SEC teams, which they often did during Nick Saban's run. So I think spreading the talent around more keeps more fan bases happy and engaged longer because it makes them feel like they have a real chance. So I think he's right, but I don't really feel all that sorry for him.
The guy who hasn't lost a regular season game in 3 years, you don't feel sorry for him?
I mean, who is the last team Georgia lost to that was not named Alabama?
It was
you got the.
Was it Auburn or no? It was it was We just talked about this the other day.
Yeah,
Danny had the stats.
Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, with Mullen, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2020 season.
So no, I don't really feel all that bad for him. I'm sure what he's talking about is, they lost Marvin Jones to Florida State. He missed decent bit of camp with the rolled ankle, and now he's just killing it for them. And like that's a guy that would probably help them if he can stay healthy. I mean, it's kind of the same deal in Tallahassee. He's got to stay healthy. There are numerous examples of Georgia, like guys leaving Georgia and going to get drafted. Who was the backer who went to white guy left, went to Arkansas and was like all over the field for them? Right. Yeah. Like those are guys who leave those Bama and Georgia type rosters to go elsewhere, and they play well immediately because they're ready to play. So yeah, I think Kirby's totally right.
While we're on the subject of like coaches saying things, can I poke the hornet's nest a little bit here?
Yeah.
All right. So Deion's not talking to CBS, and there was the whole hullabaloo about it last week. And the assumption was it was either like the Big 12 coach rankings or something else. And then there was a story earlier this week in which Deion talked to can't remember the guy's name from On3, but it was the story was basically that the beef with CBS stemmed maybe from like his time working for CBS like 20 years ago. If it's from that, then why were you talking to the reporter before? It just doesn't really add up to me, Coach. It doesn't make sense.
Coach, can you talk about this? It doesn't really add up for me. Can you help us? Can you help us understand it? I love the different ways that you can frame a question when you ask a coach. Coach,
Also, when you did the 60 Minutes interview, what network was that on?
Can you shed some light on this for me? Because I'm having trouble getting a handle on it.
Oh, yeah, 60 Minutes. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a 20-year-old beef. That's why he doesn't talk to this one reporter who had absolutely nothing to do with it, whatever the hell it is.
I think they're bowling if they stay healthy.
It's not terribly controversial.
that's
Their win
perfectly
total is
fine, yeah.
5.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For,
But if
for
they don't
an
stay
alleged
healthy-
Colorado hater, it is. I'm all aboard Colorado.
Hold on. Bud is just trying to get as much on record as possible. So listen, we're I'll make a note. Clip Bud, another positive comment for Bud. Put $2 in the jar. Every time Bud says something positive, Shiloh needs to Venmo Bud $2. There you go.
Wait, Shiloh?
I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my mouth
Yeah,
shut.
I don't know if he has $2 to Venmo.
What about Junior? Okay, what about Junior? Maybe Junior could do it. I think there's a possibility, and this is a slight possibility. I think that Kirby Smart's probably telling the truth, but it sounds to me like Nick Saban during a lot of fall camps when he was in there talking about how his team wasn't ready, talking about how he's like they need to work harder, talking about all the things they need to do to improve. And Kirby's smart enough to understand that, maybe his players have no clue what he says at media availability, but Nick Saban is gone and his DNA very much lives on, because when I saw that Kirby Smart comment about depth and younger guys that are not quite ready to go out there, second string guys that are not quite there yet, that sounded to me like trying to light a fire under the ass of some super talented young players that he thinks need to tighten up just a little bit in case they need to get their number called. So was he telling the truth? Yep, possibly. But I also think it might have been some classic old school motivation from the old Saban tree.
When does Kirby drop it? Is this what we want football to be?
Let's see. After they play Tennessee. That's not till later in the year. I don't have their schedule pulled up right now, but I would say that not till later.
It's like
in the
late
year.
in the year, yeah.
Yeah.
It's after Halloween.
After Nico throws for 406 on him.